My daughter-in-law slid a folder across my own dining table and said, "Sign here, Frank. It's just a formality for the family trust." I looked at the page long enough to see my name typed above a line that didn't match my handwriting anywhere else in my life, and I set my pen down without touching it. "I'll need my own lawyer to look at this first," I said. Her smile didn't move, but her eyes did. She had no idea I'd already made a call that morning that would end this before she got her answer. "I'm Frank Delacroix, 66, retired after 29 years, inspecting bridges and overpasses for the state of Michigan. My wife Joan passed 4 years ago, and since then it's been me, my son Peter, and his wife Renata in this slow orbit around a house I built with my own hands in 1994. Peter's 41, works in insurance underwriting. Renata's 37, runs the books for a boutique wealth management firm downtown, sharp with numbers in a way that always impressed me until it didn't. The trouble started small, the way it always does. Last winter, Renata began asking casual questions about my finances at Sunday dinners. How much was in the CDs Joan and I had built over 3 decades? Whether I'd updated my will since she passed. I chalked it up to her job, the kind of person who thinks in spreadsheets even at the dinner table. Then in February, a notary I'd never heard of called my house to confirm an appointment I hadn't made. I told her she had the wrong number. In March, my bank statement didn't arrive on the usual day. Small things. Nothing that should have worried a careful man, and I'd spent my whole career being a careful man, which is exactly why I almost missed it. The real crack came in April. I stopped by my credit union in Lansing to consolidate 2 savings accounts, something I'd been meaning to do since Joan died. The teller, a woman named Priscilla who'd known me 11 years, pulled up my file and her expression changed. "Frank, there's a power of attorney filed against this account from back in January." I told her that was impossible. She turned the screen toward me. "Renata Delacroix, attorney in fact, full authority over banking and property decisions, notarized January 9th by a notary named Vivian Cross." I'd never met a Vivian Cross in my life, and the signature above my typed name curved wrong at the F. Too neat, too careful, like someone who'd practiced it in private. I drove straight to the county recorder's office and pulled the file myself. 4 pages, clean and official looking, sitting behind a second document, a request to transfer the deed on my house into a living trust with Renata, listed as sole trustee. My house, paid off since 2009, sitting in a folder, waiting on the power of attorney to clear so the transfer could record. I sat in my truck in that parking lot for a long time. My hands didn't shake. They just went still on the wheel, the way tools go still when you finally understand they've been pointed at you the whole time. That night I called my brother Walt, a retired county clerk who still knows every back office in that building. I told him everything. He was quiet, then he asked the only question that mattered. "Does Peter know?" I told him I didn't know, and Walt said that was going to hurt worse than the house ever could. He was right. The next morning I called an estate attorney named Carla Fenwick, recommended by Priscilla, a woman with a reputation for being unpleasant to underestimate. She read the filings once, set them down, and said the notary registration for Vivian Cross didn't exist anywhere in the state. Somebody had built the whole document from a template and stamped it themselves. Carla's plan was simple. First, an emergency revocation of the power of attorney, which would freeze the pending transfer within 10 days. Second, a subpoena to Halbrook Wealth Partners, Renata's firm, to check whether the notary template matched software used in-house. Third, a civil complaint for fraud. And fourth, a referral to the state licensing board. Since Renata held a certified financial planner designation that came with strict ethics obligations, Carla told me not to say one word to Peter or Renata until she gave the signal, and to just live my life quietly for 6 weeks while the paper trail locked into place. 6 weeks is a long time to sit across the table from someone who thinks you don't know yet. Renata brought up the trust twice more during that stretch, always casual, always over coffee, telling me it would simplify things for Peter someday, that I shouldn't leave loose ends at my age. I let her talk. I asked mild questions and nodded along, the way you nod at a bridge inspection when you already know which beam is going to fail, and you're just waiting for the crew to finish walking across it. In the 5th week, Carla's subpoena came back from Halbrook Wealth Partners with a match, a notary stamp template pulled from firm software under Renata's login, time-stamped January 8th, 1 day before the filing. That was the piece that turned a suspicion into a case. Carla said we were ready to move, and the timing landed on a Sunday, 3 days later, when Renata's parents were visiting from Grand Rapids and the whole family sat down together for dinner at Peter and Renata's house. I went over early to talk to Peter alone before her parents arrived. He met me at the door with a look I recognized immediately, the same look I used to see on a bridge deck right before an inspection failed. A man who already suspects the crack is there and doesn't want to hear it confirmed out loud. Renata slid the folder across the table that evening before dinner even started, in front of her parents, casual as anything, asking me to sign the trust paperwork as a formality. That's when I told her I'd need my own lawyer first and set the pen down. Her smile held for exactly 3 seconds. "Frank, it's nothing complicated, it just protects everyone," I said. "Renata, there's a power of attorney filed with my name on it from January, notarized by a woman who doesn't exist in this state's records." The table went still. Her father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Renata said, "I was protecting the assets, Frank, for the family, for Peter. You should have set this up years ago and you never did." I said, "I never asked you to protect anything of mine." She said I'd thank her eventually once I understood what she'd been trying to build for us. I said, "The notary on that filing was manufactured off your firm's own software, under your login, one day before it was filed. That's not protection, Renata, that's forgery." She didn't have an answer for that. Peter looked at her, then at me, and something in his face gave way, quiet, not dramatic. The look of a man watching a beam he'd already half suspected was rotten finally buckle. He asked her directly if it was true. She didn't deny it. She just said she'd done it for the family, as if the phrase alone could undo 4 months of paperwork built on a stranger's name. I drove home that night and called Carla before I'd even started the truck. 2 weeks later, Renata was charged with forgery and identity theft under Michigan law, both felonies given the property value involved. She pleaded to a reduced single count, received probation and restitution covering our legal costs, and lost her CFP certification permanently once the state board reviewed Carla's filing. Halbrook Wealth Partners terminated her within the week their own subpoena results came back. Peter moved into an apartment near Lansing that October. He and Renata separated, not divorced yet, but living apart, and he calls me most Sundays now, sometimes twice a week. It isn't fixed. Carla told me some things take longer to repair than a court filing ever could, and she was right about that too. But he came to Thanksgiving, and he sat beside me at the table instead of across from me, which felt like something worth noticing. The house is still mine, deed clean, nothing pending. Walt still comes by on Sundays with a 6-pack and opinions about my gutters that nobody asked for, and some evenings we just sit on the porch and don't say much, because after a year like that one, silence with the right person is its own kind of peace. If someone you trusted enough to hand a key to had built their whole plan on your own signature, would you have signed anyway to keep the peace? Or would you have set the pen down the way I did?